Okay, so is that saying that we've got contact or not?
We're live. We are live.
That's great. So it takes a little bit of time for us to get things cooking. Okay. Hey everyone. We're a couple of days late. Sorry. As we've said before on a couple of previous shows, Carl is busy with work on a Sunday New Zealand time, and unfortunately, I had a family event I had to attend Monday evening. So we're committed to doing these weekly shows. We might be 3 or 4 days late, but we'll get there.
Woodstock didn't happen in a day. It happened in 3 days.
Yeah. So let's just see who's joined us here in the chat. Jimmy T. Hey, Jimmy T. How's it going? And Arvon. Awesome. Good to see you guys. Um, I had a opportunity to have a chat with Jimmy T on Johnny Bean's Discord a couple of days ago, so that was good catching up with Jimmy T. And we got some good feedback on the show, Carl. So that's always good. People are enjoying some of the stuff that we're talking about. So that's always cool to hear.
Definitely encouraging. Yeah, for sure.
So how's your week been?
Oh, not too bad. Yeah, a couple of things going on.
Awesome.
Yeah. No, very. No one day is the same.
No. I've got a Coke Zero, guys. So cheers.
Awesome.
Oh my God, that's good. Give me a second. I'm going to change hats. I feel naked. It's a bit nippy here, man.
Yeah, expecting a polar blast.
Yeah. Well, it's starting to happen. So we got some good feedback. Did I say that on
Yep.
on a couple of shows? I did have one chat with he's not here, Soda Pop, and Soda Pop was asking a couple of questions to me, Carl, about the influence. He didn't understand the connection between Elvis Presley and the Rolling Stones, and I basically said, well, it was just setting the background, I suppose, setting a tone for for popular music, and it gave a platform for the Beatles and the Stones to jump onto. Would that be a good summary of Elvis's role? Do you think?
Yeah. When I think of Elvis, and when I think of more so the Beatles, to a lesser extent the Rolling Stones, A, it can be done. B, rock and roll. C, excitement. And history proves that.
Well, it's a year since the passing of Tom Petty, and I watched Running Down the Dream. It's a 2-hour movie biography that came out, I think, in around 2007. But there was one interesting piece in there where Tom Petty's talking about Elvis Presley. He saw Elvis Presley. He actually hung out with Elvis Presley. He had an uncle that knew of some people and knew of a location of a film that Elvis was filming on. So he went and saw Elvis. And so, yeah, that's interesting. So he saw Elvis and they all fell in love with Elvis. He was an Elvis nut. But this whole idea of Elvis, there was only ever going to be one Elvis. We couldn't be Elvises. That was impossible. But when he saw the Beatles, he thought, oh, that that looks like something we can do, as a group. But when they saw the Rolling Stones, they thought that's definitely something we can do.
Yeah. Well, because we talked about this in a few shows back. America had a leading frontman and a backing band.
Yeah.
Where the English gave us a band. No, still a frontman, but it was a family. For example, the Muddy Waters Blues Band, the Howling Wolf Blues Band, Elvis Presley, Gene Vincent and the Blue Caps, Eddie Cochran and the blah, blah, blah. It goes on and on, where Buddy Holly and the Crickets. So the Americans had a different idea. They had to put the showman out the front. He's the money man. He's the money maker. He's the hit maker. The band, the backing band, is basically employees. Where the Poms were like, "Hey, they're not employees. We're all one."
Well, to be fair, George Martin thought the same thing too when he first rehearsed had the Beatles. He was trying to work out who's the lead singer while they're playing, or rehearsing or auditioning, I suppose is that the word. And he's trying to work out who, and then he realizes, all credit to him, and I suppose the genius of George Martin, he realized, there's no one lead singer. This is a group.
Hey, I mean, what's wrong with a group?
Well, no, but no. Do you think the Rolling Stones at one stage early on may have fallen into that temptation of Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones?
Nah, never. No, because then that's the theme of our show today is Muddy Waters. When they asked in their infancy, I think they're talking to Eric Easton or somebody, what's the name of your band? And they were cooking, they were hot, the word was getting around, but they didn't have a name for their band.
So that's correct, yes.
Brian Jones was in a telephone booth, and they happened to have Muddy Waters, best of, and looked at the track listing, Rolling Stone with no S. He says, how about we call ourselves the Rolling Stones? So Brian, I guess, was a smart guy, young guy, ambitious. Mick Jagger, a confident guy, but relatively naive. Obviously, they were like a family. They all lived at Edith Grove, but there was no one star. So it made sense for them to be called, to be named after a group. I guess with the Americans, the star had already been molded, and then the band was backing.
So there was clearly a group tradition in British popular music, anyway.
I think so. Yeah. Well, just see, with the Americans, not all but some, you'd have different backgrounds and different age groups of the band. I mean, a lot of the guys were session players, or maybe they're part of a big band orchestra. With the British guys, they came from the same suburb or the same town, maybe went to the same school. So it was, a bit more intimate, I guess.
Yeah. So Carl's already mentioned it earlier. The topic of this week's show is Muddy Waters, and I think most of us would know who Muddy Waters is. But what we're going to try and do is articulate and link Muddy Waters back to the Rolling Stones. And I'll try and not take it back to other British groups, because that could be a show in itself, I suppose. Muddy Waters and his influence on the whole British blues scene, but we won't go that far tonight. we'll just keep it to the Stones.
Well, a lot of those bands, some better than others, all tried Got My Mojo working, and yeah. So.
You want to kick things off, mate?
Oh yeah, cool. So I mean, obviously we've talked about the Rolling Stones' key influences, which have been Chuck Berry with Keith and the rock and roll, Bo Diddley with Brian Jones. He had that sound down pretty good. The Showman, the rock, the excitement influence care of Elvis Presley and Buddy Holly, and obviously the American influence, to a lesser extent the white influence. And obviously the key figure, though, obviously is, which the Stones based their core sound on, which was Chicago blues, and ultimately the father of that sound was Muddy Waters.
Sure.
And Muddy Waters, as we know, Morgan McKinley Field, humble background, got his nickname from playing in the swamp or the creek. Get out of that creek, Muddy Waters. So I guess it's stuck. But a lot of people don't know this. He was sought after in the early 40s, and I had one of his records. In those particular days, there was not much electricity, and it was called the Lomax Sessions. I think Alan Lomax, or someone from the big city, took a tape recorder down to the Delta, the cotton fields, and taped Muddy's, knocked on his door, or got him off the porch and said, "Son, can you record me some songs, please?" And that was the world's first insight to Muddy Waters, just a young man, farmer, sharecropper, doing that beautiful slide. Incredible insight to realise the potential of Muddy Waters. And that guy was Alan Lomax. And then I guess once he took those tapes back to the big city, I imagine those days was probably telegraphs. Muddy obviously got a bit tired about working in the field, as a lot of them would. The bright lights, the big city, let's hop on a train and move north to Chicago. So that was, I think, 1949.
How old was he when he split from where he was living to go to Chicago? Do you know that?
He wasn't a young man. He was still young, but in his 30s.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That old?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'll just Google it.
No, don't say that. Just I've researched it.
I'll wing it.
Yeah. We don't Google.
So I already know, but I want to get it right. So yeah.
Yeah.
So this is interesting. He was born in 1913, but then it says he was born in 1915. So obviously they weren't keeping very good records. Not records, but county records.
Sure.
So yeah. So he would have hit Chicago. The Alan Lomax, yeah. Oh, sorry, I got it wrong. Headed to Chicago in 1943. So what's
So what's your math?
43? Let's just say he was born in 13.
Yeah.
30 years old.
Wow.
So when he did those big chess numbers like Rolling Stone, Got My Mojo Working, I Just Want to Make Love to You, all those big songs.
I Can't Be Satisfied.
I Can't Be Satisfied. He was 7 and 5, 12, 42 years old, my age.
Oh, you don't look that old, man. No.
So that's basically, in order for him to get that sound, which was revolutionary, that bravado, that power, the electricity, he'd been doing that at juke joints and fish fries and church parties for 20 years prior, but all acoustic.
So Arvin has mentioned in the chat that he's heard those Lomax recordings of Muddy, and he's ended his comment with "the great." So, are those Lomax recordings similar in status to the Sun recordings we were talking about last week with Elvis? Is that where they sit?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Sun ones are very rock is a different genre. They're very upbeat and I guess energetic. Where these particular recordings are very, very authentic and
Not in styles, but in importance for the artist, I suppose. You know, that's what I'm asking. So if you're a serious Muddy Waters scholar or you want to understand Muddy Waters, is it essential, Carl, do you think, to go back and listen to those Lomax recordings?
Absolutely.
In your opinion?
I think so. I think it's a good study in bottleneck guitar playing. I think it's a good study in someone singing without a microphone, a good study in someone's storytelling, a good study in finding out who Son House was and ultimately who Robert Johnson was.
Okay,
part of the puzzle and just another piece.
Because I suppose as the show gets on, I'll tell you a little bit more about what I understand, my understanding and my exposure to Muddy Waters. But I'm not going to bull, hand on heart. I haven't listened to all those recordings. I've checked out a few of them. There's a few clips on YouTube, and that's great. But I'll make a point of checking them out. There is one question though that I'd like to ask you. So, did Muddy wing these recordings, or was he given time to formulate? You know, we've all played in bands, and we sit and we work out a set list of what we're going to sing. Did he have that opportunity, do you think?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think because he liked playing, he'd be playing regularly on weekends for a long time. It ultimately just came natural to him.
So that would have been his standard set list, maybe, that he
at
played.
The fish fries at the weekends. Yeah.
That would have been his. Here you go, and he would have just played his standard,
which would have probably been a combination of his own songs and covers. So yeah, I'll just have a quick look at the can you imagine the excitement he would have found, just like the Stones would, or anybody who heard themselves on the radio for the first time, listening to yourself through electricity, through a tape recorder?
Do you know what kind of gear he was using? Was he just using an acoustic guitar then, clearly?
Yes, yeah.
Just a standard, maybe a Gibson or something like that?
That's a good question. I'll have a look. Definitely an acoustic. Whether it had a pickup or not, I don't know. Here we go. So basically an F-hole acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
So that's it. There's some famous photos of him with a fiddle player, young man. But yeah. It's an incredible in-depth part of his career. The first part that people don't talk about much. Everyone talks about Chicago, but
I think this is why we can't discount that movie Cadillac Records, and we've spoken about it before a few times on the show. But if you guys haven't seen Cadillac Records, there's a great scene there where the guy acting as Muddy Waters is sitting in the back of a shack, and he's doing something I can't remember. And anyway, it's Alan Lomax drives up the drive, and Muddy's sort of sitting there a bit apprehensive. This white guy is coming up and then he has a chat to him and asks him to play.
Yeah.
And he pulls open the boot of his car, and he's got that recording thing set up. And there's Muddy singing being recorded. Now we know that that's a Hollywood version, but that's pretty much probably what would have happened.
I mean, they would have been pretty much familiar with white people, I guess, and once a week going shopping in the town, or unfortunately the plantation owners, but they would have probably been a little bit off guard. But once they, a deal breaker is basically talking about music. Once they start talking about music, it's over. Let's do it.
Well, Arvin's asking you a question that you might be able to help answer. He's saying, did Lomax do the Fred McDowell ones too, Carl?
I don't know. I know that he did. He was commissioned by the Library of Congress to get out in the field and do recordings, because I used to own some albums of it was called something about In the South, and it was Fred McDowell did some early versions. It's probably on the computer. See, one thing about the blues is it's a massive field.
Well,
that's true. Yep.
It was Lomax.
Yep. So yeah,
maybe we need to have a show on Lomax and maybe some of these producers, because I don't know anything about Alan Lomax.
Oh, he's just one of these guys that like a lot of these guys, probably very much a visionary and someone that's very probably it's hard. So much stuff going on in America at that particular time. They probably needed something different. But I'm just looking at this at the track listing. Shake 'em on down. Good morning, little schoolgirl. Keep your lambs trimmed and burning. Woke up this morning with mind on Jesus. Going down to the river. I mean, these are all famous Fred McDowell songs. So it tells me that these guys have been doing this for 20, 30 years before they became famous. I mean, another good case study is a guy called Skip James. He was doing stuff in the 30s. He was huge. Forgotten about.
So what motivated Lomax, you think, for him to drive, from an air-conditioned office block in Memphis or somewhere, somewhere in the South, to be driving, hours and hours to go and record some of these black blues guys? What would have motivated him?
It's a lot like jazz. It's a lot like, it's organic. It's not artificial. It's storytelling, like I mentioned before. It's tough. It's real. It's interesting. It's almost like a case study. It's almost like these guys were prophets. They could see something happening before it happened.
I just want to do a shout out. Soda's jumped in and he's saying g'day to you. So you can say g'day to Soda.
Hi, Soda.
I had a chat with him and Jimmy T last week. Soda's from Canada, so that was cool.
We talked about that before, yeah.
Yeah. He's just got back, so he's always
Canuck country, is it?
Yeah, Canuck, yeah. So, but he enjoys our show. He said there's a lot of things that he didn't know. So, and I said to him, well, that's cool, because there's a lot of things I don't know either. So
yeah,
I joined the club. That's the great thing about social media. There's lots of people who don't know things.
Well, I'm a bit wary of social media, but I do like YouTube.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I should be more specific. Yeah, YouTube is pretty cool.
I was talking to someone famous today. I'll tell you about him later.
Awesome.
I said, might catch you on Facebook, and he goes, I don't use it. So there you go. So,
It's interesting you should say that, because there's a couple of guys on Ben Coombs's show who I subscribe to on YouTube, and they don't use Facebook too.
Yeah, don't know. It's something funny going on.
Yeah, Arvin's a Canadian. I knew that too. Arvin's a Canuck. Okay, so anyway, I interrupted you, mate. You were on a roll. You were talking about Muddy.
Oh yeah. So obviously Lomax was one of these guys, a little bit like that guy Hammond, a little bit like the Atlantic guy Wexler and Umit Erkin. With the Blacks and Eric Clapton, and a lot of these guys, Willie Dixon as well. These guys had a certain ear for sound. Some of these guys didn't play instruments, but they just knew, not necessarily hearing money, but hearing something unique or powerful. So, I mean, from Muddy's perspective, he struck gold, really, because there's a famous map, and I'd love to buy the map. You can buy it on eBay, and it shows you just a concentrated part of America, the Delta, where all the famous blues musicians came from. And it was all concentrated in mainly Tennessee. So they all knew each other too, which is interesting. And they just were all of the same background. Church on Sunday, work in the fields, listening to music, playing music, talking about troubles, and just something magical that they did that started what we know as rock and roll, and rock and roll started hard rock, and hard rock started heavy metal. Heavy metal just went on and on and on.
Yeah, I wish I could say that that I was a disciple of Muddy Waters early on. I can't. I can tell you that my appreciation and understanding of Muddy Waters and being alerted to who he was and how important he was obviously reading interviews that Keith would give and Mick would give, and again Clapton would give, and you couldn't escape that name, Muddy Waters. He was always popping up. So I can't recall listening to Muddy Waters, a Muddy Waters album, when I was listening to the Stones and Beatles and Clapton. I can't recall. I'd have to say the first time I listened to any kind of Muddy Waters stuff seriously was when I was in my 30s.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, because if you're just like grew up with maybe popular music, radio music, Muddy Waters would sound raw, so raw you'd be like, I can't handle this. And then obviously we love the Rolling Stones, we love contemporary hard rock. We listen to that, we realize that some of those songs are covers, that we research, find out it's Howling Wolf, or which Led Zeppelin's, they said they modeled themselves after Howling Wolf, Rolling Stones, Muddy Waters, that sort of thing. And then after liking that particular music, that hard rock, you not only do you build up an appreciation, but you're mature enough to go back and listen to Muddy and say, oh, I understand now.
Yeah, I think what you've done what you've just said, you've hit the nail on the head, and I think you have to do that, and certainly that was my understanding of Muddy Waters, and it just basically came down to access to records. None of my friends had Muddy Waters records, so you know. And you know what it's like, Carl. You couldn't buy Muddy Waters records from Tracks, could you?
No. I mean, let's face it. Blues has never been a big seller, ever.
No, but I do remember though. I do really. There's a couple of crucial milestones, obviously, but I do remember. I must have been about around 30, but I remember there was the ad. There was a famous ad, but I remember going to a party and this album, if that focuses, that album was on.
Yes.
Now that album, and I'll play a snippet of it because Soda needs to check it out. Fantastic.
I was going to talk about that album a bit later on, but you brought it up.
Well, so I appreciate the fact that you guys are saying that I need to go back and listen to the Lomax recordings, because again, can you imagine being half drunk and then someone drops that album on and you consider yourself a blues man of a degree, and you hear that for the first time right through that whole album.
Awesome. Yeah, I've got that album.
Wow.
See, what happened was you had a bit like Elvis and some of the other guys have talked about, you had the raw chess 45s.
Yeah.
Which the British guys and stuff would have heard. And then what was interesting is albums went big in those days. They had 45s, they had the jukeboxes. So when it was Best of Muddy Waters that came out, 1960, it was 5 years of his singles put on one album. So if you're a true musician, you bought the 45s initially because that's all you could get.
Sure.
And then the album came out later. But once the British guys, in the early 60s got, influence and all that, it was great. And then a lot of those baby boomers who grew up with Muddy Waters, Rolling Stones and that, grew a bit older. Muddy Waters had a resurgence with the college crowd because maybe those guys had sons. And Johnny Winter said, you know what? Muddy Waters is one of my idols. He needs to be put on wax again. He re-recorded a lot of those songs.
Yes.
So we need to thank Johnny Winter for that.
Absolutely. Because again, that album led me down the track of Johnny Winter. So
it was late 70s. He got a resurgence again, but 78 that album came out, or 77?
77. Yeah. And you can hear Johnny in the back going, yeah, boom.
And what I like about Muddy is he was never that bitter. He was always appreciative of not only the Chess Brothers, the Rolling Stones, he was appreciative of his buddies, but he was the black version of John Mayall as far as the father of the blues, because through Muddy's bands over the 20 or 30 years he was known popular. He had Jimmy Rogers as his first guitar player, went on to have a successful solo career, and your buddy Gary Moore did what's the song? What's that famous Jimmy Rogers song? I'll get it. My mind has just skipped.
That's okay.
You know I love you.
You know it's true. Yeah. Give me all your loving. Yeah. Great song.
Walking by myself or something like that. So
Well,
Muddy,
yeah.
so Muddy was the father figure, the band leader, the showman, the alpha male. Jimmy Rogers got a successful career. Little Walter was his main harp player. Little Walter got his own act with the Aces. So basically, Muddy's not only had a band, but he had a school. So Buddy Guy played with him, Willie Dixon, Walter Big Horton, James Cotton, all great harmonica players. Sammy Lawthorne, James Madison. We talked about Johnny Winter, Bob Margolin, the white guitar player later on.
Yeah, Bob's cool.
Otis Spann. We can't talk enough about Otis Spann, the great piano player. And when Otis Spann unfortunately passed away in the early 70s, Pine Top Perkins, who eventually lived in Austin, who I think is still alive or made it to 100 years old at least.
So Simon's just joined us and he's saying he's doing a shout out. So g'day, Simon. And Jimmy T's got back from wherever Jimmy shot off to. So yeah, they've joined us back in the chat, so that's cool. Yeah, I can't tell you how important that album Hard Again was for me, and I still continue to listen to it. It's on rotation on my Spotify. I just every single song is just
I like
beautiful.
it.
It's beautiful. But I suppose that the situation again with Johnny Winter doing that is, you know, what a nice guy, you know, a charitable thing for him to do.
Absolutely. Excuse me.
No problem.
Just turning some chicken over.
Oh man, don't burn the chicken. Don't burn the chicken, brother.
I mean, we see Muddy with that famous checkerboard lounge with Mick Jagger, and just such a generous, kind-hearted gentleman. I mean, he could have said, you know what, who the hell are these little punks trying to do my music? He embraced them. So I mean, your friend Eric Clapton, I mean, they did a tour, didn't they? 81. Muddy Waters had a big heart, and that's besides music, that's why he's loved so much, is because off the stage he basically said, you know what, we've got this good thing going, I'll share it. And can you imagine being on the stage with someone like that? You know, you're a pimply little kid, 19, listen to these, you know, basically said, you know, great 45s, boom.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember when I got a chance to see Checkerboard Lounge. Now it must have been, it definitely was on a VHS. So when did they record that, or when was that filmed? 80, 83, 84?
81.
81. Okay, so I probably saw that, and I have to be honest with you. I remember watching that, well, parts of it, and I didn't think much of it because I wasn't listening to that kind of music at the stage at that stage of my life, and that would have been probably about 86, 87. I certainly remember it was at the same location I was watching Van Halen's Live Without a Net, and that came out around 86, 87 too. So my attention was certainly to listen to Van Halen. I paid no attention to Checkerboard Lounge. But when they released that on a DVD, would have been maybe mid 1990s.
I'm not sure. I was only aware of it just through the Rolling Stones autobiography, 25 by 5.
and downloading it on iTunes again recently. Boy, it's fantastic.
Yeah, it was unique because what happened was you had the big American tour, the 1981 tour, and obviously when most bands tour America, they hit the big cities first, or the big cities always get played. And what a night to be in Chicago! The Stones are in town; they're doing a big stadium somewhere. Let's go and let's go and see Muddy. Let's go to the South Side.
Well, if you guys haven't seen it, in the chat, just check it out, because Muddy's up there with his band and he's pretty cool, and he's got this tight band and they're on a small stage. And the Stones come in and Keith is so cool, and they walk up to the stage on the tables and jump on the stage, and you can see. You can see the way that Muddy's looking at these guys. There's artistic admiration there, but genuine warmth. He's happy to be on stage with these guys.
Yeah, no, I've followed a little bit of Muddy in his live stuff. I've got a particular album, it's called Live at Mr. Kelly's, and it's sublime. It's amazing. Obviously, at that particular stage, Muddy was quite old and he was sitting on a stool. But I tell you what, we forget about Muddy. We know him as the singer, the band leader. We forget about how great a guitar player he was, a slide guitar player, and how he took a back seat. But when he did a solo, everybody knew that he was doing the solo.
Well, Bob talks about that too. Bob, how do you pronounce
Margolin?
Margolin talks about that. He's got a wonderful blues tuition book, digital thing that you can download. Anyway, in the introduction, he talks about how tough Muddy was, a tough band leader. If these guys weren't on the beat, man, he'd growl them.
Yeah.
And again, he makes the point that you're making, that they would sit. Sometimes the reason why that they weren't focused on the job is because they were fans too. So they're playing and they want to watch Muddy.
Yeah.
They want to hear him, and then but he made it quite clear to them. Well, people are paying to see us, so we've got to get it right.
Muddy had I would say a streetwise intellect, which is what I have and you have. It's not something that's trained in schools. He knew just through hard times what it took to make it, and that was to be tough but be also kind. And part of that kindness was what made him great, because look at this legacy. Look how many musicians he played with. I mean, for a time there, a small time, he had white harmonica players with him. Jerry Portney, Paul Osher.
Yep.
Wow. I mean, can you imagine being a 17-year-old kid, look at these Muddy Waters covers? 3 years later, they say you got the job.
That Portney's a killer, though, man.
Oh, he played on your buddy's album, Eric from the Cradle.
Yeah, he's a killer. He's a killer harp player.
Yeah.
He makes that album.
Is that right? He's good.
Yeah, and he's also he also plays harp on the one that Eric did with the tribute album he did to Robert Johnson too. It's just
he would have played country harp then.
Just very good.
That's encouraging.
So what's that album that you were saying earlier that he recorded when he was older? That you said really good. I'm going to see if that's on Spotify. If that's
the live album. The live album.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. It's good. Some of the songs, unfortunately, on Spotify are not there, but it's called Live at Mr. Kelly's.
Live at Mr. Kelly's.
Yeah. It is. See, Muddy was a bit like Elvis. It was a bit bizarre. He had the acoustic stuff going on in the 40s. He went to Chicago. They signed him to Chess. He was big in the 50s. Then he was painting a ceiling. Then he was big again. Then he did an experimental album called, have you seen that album, that white cover, and he's dressed in a big long coat?
Yes.
Electric Mud.
Yes.
And it was all psychedelic, And then he was forgotten about. And then Live at Mr. Kelly's put him into the sophisticated white crowd. And then he was put in the freezer to be frozen. And he was thawed out again with Johnny Winter. Had a very interesting career.
So Live at Mr. Kelly's on Spotify has got, what has she got? You Don't Have to Go, Strange Woman, Blow Wind Blow, Country Boy, 9 Below Zero, Stormy Monday Blues, Mudcat, Boom Boom, She's 19 Years Old, Sissy Woman, and Long Distance Call. I'll check it out. Appreciate the heads up, buddy.
Oh, I love it. I absolutely love it. You want to talk about not only Muddy, a couple of those songs have CC Muddy had about 5 or 6 harmonica players. He had Mojo George Buford. He had, wow. But you want to talk about 2 good guitar players, Sammy Lawthorne and James Pee Wee Madison. Beautiful, unrestrained solos.
When was this album recorded? Do you know?
71.
71.
Yeah.
So obviously this isn't as popular or held in high regard because I haven't come across it, but I'm not saying that I'm a Muddy Waters nut as much as the famous live one that they did at oh gosh, you know, the one at the Folk Festival.
Yeah. That was good in the sense that it was live music early on. But
what's that album called?
I think it's just called Folk Festival Blues, or
no. We've got to get it right for the people in the chat if they want to go and research it. Hold on. Sorry, guys.
The Muddy Waters live album, is it?
Yeah. Is that Monterey Folk Fest? Gosh. I can't remember.
Muddy Mississippi Waters Live?
No. What is it, Simon? Newport Folk Festival. That's it. That's the one.
Oh, 1960. Oh, yeah. That's when he had the white suit and the white bowling shoes and did.
Yeah, and there's clips of some of those numbers on YouTube.
That's not bad. It's 1960, but that's a different kind of band altogether.
Yeah, that's the album. That's the album there. That's the one that I listened to about 10 years ago religiously because, yeah,
it's okay.
I'm glad you said it's okay because I think it's just okay.
He was a bit. The audience was quite immature because his big a bit like a circus really. His big encore was Got My Mojo Working. They all come out and do their dancing, and I don't think that's really how he wanted to express himself. And a lot of people don't know this, but Got My Mojo Working, I learned this in America, was never his song. He didn't necessarily steal the song, but a female lady called Ann Cole from Louisiana wrote the song. So he basically turned an unknown song into a huge hit song written by a young female. It was never his song.
So what's the story behind Electric Mud? Is that
a concept album?
Is that the young Marshall Chess been involved? Marshall Chess trying to do something.
Drugs and a bit of a freak out.
So what did Muddy think about that album? Has he said anything about that album? Because it's an interesting album.
Because they did that a little bit with Howling Wolf. You may not like it, and Howling Wolf doesn't either, or something stupid title like that. They were trying to just catch on to the psychedelic craze, and a lot of wah-wah was used. Wah-wah, which was quite unique. but it's a bit like a B grade movie. At first it wasn't liked, but 20, 30 years later, it has become an underground classic. Apparently, I don't own it. It's not how I know Muddy, but maybe if someone played it, it might be good.
Oh well, I've listened to it a few times, and I've I got to agree with you. It's interesting. It's an interesting album. Hard Again is in my opinion. I've listened to The Folk Singer, which again is a really important album. I've listened to that album a few times, but the album for me is Hard Again, and the chessboard. But I'm just looking here because I've been slack. I didn't do any homework on this show, but there's a whole heap of songs here from chess recordings from 1940. What does it say? From 1947 to 56.
Yeah,
whole heap of songs.
Mm. Oh, he did a lot of stuff, a lot of singles.
Wow.
It's quite. It's funny because it was a bit like Chuck Berry, and I guess they were conceived as money makers. I mean, he did a stupid album called Muddy Waters Brass and Blues, and they overproduced him, put stupid backing orchestra and stuff, and Folk Singer was considered a bit of a sellout because it was catered to the coffee crowd, the cafe crowd, safe, if you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's another great album. It's mind-blowing. I own it. Is the series called Muddy Waters More Folk Blues and Real Folk Blues or something like that. Yeah. He's just a heavyweight, eh? That's it. He's just a massive heavyweight.
So how realistic do you think? And I'm sorry if I've asked this question to you before. Again, we see it in Cadillac Records. Muddy's he's just turned up. He's in Chicago. He's got his acoustic. He's standing there on the side of the road, in Chicago, singing a song. He's dressed like he's come off the farm, and some sick dude walks past with a chick, and gives him a bit of grief, and a girl throws him down a microphone, and he attaches a microphone to his guitar. Do you think that's how he did it?
I mean, yeah, because the song got my mojo working. Mojo was like, for example, I'm going to Louisiana, get me a Mojo hand. Lightning Hopkins made his famous signature song was Mojo Hand. See, a lot of people don't know this, but the blues music is a combination of church music, field songs, some Scotch-Irish songs, and a lot of African hoodoo, tribal stuff. So there was a lot of power in that music. I'm going into Louisiana to get me a Mojo hand. So when some of these city girls who may be in second generation black see these young guys, strapping guys with some sense of power, maybe they had some power, because that power is definitely portrayed through their music.
So did Muddy discover electric blues? He's the inventor of it, I should say.
Well, I tell you what, when he did that song Rolling Stone, and when you watch that beautiful, why it's not on DVD, I don't know, Rolling Stone's 25x5, and I'll play it real quick on the guitar.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're not humming it this week. Going to get his guitar, guys.
I got it.
All right.
So that Jimi Hendrix.
No, Muddy Waters.
There's a famous saying when Jimmy Vaughan first heard Jimi Hendrix, he said, "That's Muddy Waters on acid."
So the guys are the guys are saying nice. Carl and Soda wants to know how many guitars does Carl have? Carl only has good guitars.
A few, like Andrew.
So he's the inventor of Chicago blues. He's the daddy.
Well, it's interesting because I've had this discussion many a time. It's a bit like Mercedes-Benz and BMW, Robert De Niro and Al Pacino, Pepsi and Coke, Waikato and Lion Red. Let's go with the Waikato. Muddy Waters and Howling Wolf. They're both massive giants. But I think with everything said and done, because of Muddy and all the people he played with, Muddy would have to be the father figure because they were great rivals.
Well, I think you hit it a little bit earlier. You consider the amount of cats that went through his band. So from a legacy point of view, he's important, isn't he? You know. But what was interesting is that all these cats were flourishing and recording and doing music all at the same time, even while Muddy was working.
Absolutely. And I've got I'll try and find it, a great biography. And they said that even Muddy was not selling records or the music industry was a bit commercial. When Muddy had a club, he had a huge amount of charisma, massive amount. He was like a god. I mean,
Really?
Paul Butterfield talked about it, and he had so much presence, unbelievable amount of presence. So Muddy had this just mystique about him.
You're going to turn the chicken over.
We're trying to find something.
Okay. Don't eat the chicken on live on air because you'll make people hungry. Save the chicken for when the show finishes. Okay?
Yep.
Sorry, guys. What have you found it?
No. I was trying to find the Muddy Waters book to recommend. But I've got the original Muddy Waters chess promo from 1955. Hard to find.
So he's pretty smooth there. So 55. So how old is he there? 35?
Yeah, 35, 36. Yep. I think the Muddy Waters book to recommend is called "I Can't Be Satisfied."
Oh yeah. Well, there's a lot of good books coming out now on American blues because it's a university it's a college degree now, blues music. So you're getting a lot of good scholarship coming through, Carl.
Well, our friend Midge Marston got a lot of our tax-paying money in the late 90s by doing a few courses at Wintec in Hamilton. Thank you.
So do you know anything about Muddy Waters and his private life? Did he any of his children follow the musical career and
one son.
One son. So
I saw his
what's
son
his
live
name?
in Austin, Texas.
What's his name?
I'll just find out. And he was neat. He was good.
Cloudy Waters. Did you see him?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I remember now.
Well, while you're searching, I'm just going to do a shout out. Amanda Coombs has jumped in to say g'day to us, and we've got a new person in the chat. Wednesday store. Was Stones on Air meant to have a DVD or a TV release? Oh, gee, I don't know. That's the collection that came out early in the year. I've only seen it on CD or digital download. Wednesday store, so I haven't seen a DVD version of it.
I think the guy was called Big Bill Morganfield.
Oh, really?
But he had another son, apparently. Mud Morganfield, who I've never heard of. But if you want to know about Muddy's personal life, he wasn't like Howling Wolf. Howling Wolf had a wife and was very conservative. Muddy was a player. Muddy lived 2 lives.
Really?
Yes. So Muddy had his family, then Muddy had his fun.
So Muddy, the family man, and Muddy, the blues man. So, so
Yeah.
Muddy was everything that parents warn their kids about being. Don't chase that blues man, or you don't want to be hanging out with blues men.
Possibly, I don't know. I remember reading his book, and he managed to keep the family together. But I mean, we're talking lots of kids, and a couple of wives, 2 or 3. But what was interesting is it showed you how down to earth he was. Nothing more he liked doing was eating a quart of ice cream and watching baseball, the Chicago Sox.
Who wouldn't want to do that?
Yeah. So nothing more he liked doing was just being like a regular person. A little bit of ice cream and a little bit of sport.
So when did he die?
83.
83.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because I've got to find that book. I remember reading the book, and interesting guy. He was big on the booze, and he stopped the booze. He got onto the reefer, and then the doctor said no more booze, and then he got onto the champagne.
Yeah. So if you guys, something's happened to Carl. Someone's probably trying to call Carl.
No, that's fine. No one's
calling. Okay. Oh no, you froze there for a little while.
Yeah.
So the Stones and Muddy do a wonderful version of Champagne and Reefer on that Checkerboard DVD.
Yeah, yeah. And there's also a famous picture from another album, a Blues Festival album, where Muddy and actual Howling Wolf actually did have a real rivalry. They were actually arch enemies. There's a famous picture in 1972, and they're both drinking a can of Budweiser, and they're sitting down at a festival, and they'd made up. So they were both 2 kings. And we remember the famous story of Hubert Sumlin. Went to Muddy Waters temporarily for 3 months because Muddy offered him more money. And Howling Wolf drove round enraged, picked up Hubert like a son. He said, there's 2 things you're doing. You're playing with me and you're dropping the pick. And Herbert Sumlin said to this day that was the key to his sound, was no pick, playing with his fingers.
Well, again, so I'm going to link that back to Cadillac Records. It's a great scene where Howling Wolf walks into the venue, and I think, does he pull out a gun? And I think he pulls out a gun and tells Hubert to pack his guitar up, pick his amp up, and get back in the car. And powerful stuff.
Here's another story about Hubert. That famous song called "Shake for Me," which obviously Stevie Ray Vaughan did.
Yeah.
Hubert was with a girl all night, drinking all night. They said, "You got a session tomorrow." Drinking until 5 or 6. They picked him about 9 o'clock. He had no sleep. Gave him a cup of coffee. He said, "We're doing this in one take," and he nailed it. So when you hear "Shake for Me," that was just raw talent on caffeine. Unbelievable. So those guys, legendary stories. I mean, like you said, Cadillac Records, little Walter driving the car into the shop, the storefront.
It's a great movie. I love it. I think it's fantastic. It's a good Hollywood version.
Well, it's hard to. Hollywood has to, and it's unfortunate. Most movies are an hour and 20 minutes. How can you put a body of work, an hour and 20? So that movie must have been 2.5 hours, but it was still too short.
And Beyonce does a bloody good job.
Etta James?
Of portraying Etta. Yeah, I wasn't expecting much, but after I saw it the first time, I thought, well, yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Same as Austin Powers.
Yeah, Herbert. There's a wonderful set that he's doing with Clapton at one of the Crossroads gigs. I can't remember which one, and he's sitting there, and not long before he dies, and he's got the oxygen on, and
oh, really?
Yeah, he's got the oxygen hooked up, but
yeah, I got a picture of myself and Hubert.
I've seen it. I've seen it.
It's beautiful.
And a friend of mine. I didn't believe it was you.
Yeah, a friend of mine. When Hubert came to Austin, a friend of mine took Hubert to the side. I was with him, and he said, "I've got a," because Hubert liked Hawaiian shirts, and he bought him a shirt. Whether Hubert wore or not, we don't know. But it's hard to buy people clothes. But Hubert was a gentleman. I've got another picture of Hubert. Hubert had no front teeth. Clifford Antone was kind enough to not only give Hubert work in Austin, but bought him some new teeth. So
Simon's made
that's another story in itself. We could do a show about Austin, Texas, and the connection with Chicago blues.
Oh, absolutely. I'm just catching up on the chat. So Simon's saying Larry Mudd and Big Bill and Joseph Mojo. I think that's in relation to Muddy's kids. And then he's saying another cool comment like, I bet James Jamerson, and a bit like James Jamerson and Let's Get It On. Apparently he was so drunk he played it lying down.
I don't know.
Well,
yeah.
Well, we know Clapton did a few times in the 70s too. He live. Yeah. So Wednesday Store's asking, can you guys talk a bit about the Chess Studio sound, the special echo chambers or techniques you might know that they used? Are you up to talking about that, Carl?
Yeah, I don't know much about that, to be honest. We talked about Ron Marlowe. We talked about America being a little bit ahead of the times with tube technology. Don't know much about that. I know a bit about studios in America. I know that the Motown sound was primitive, but it worked. I know the Stax sound in Memphis, similar to Motown, was primitive, but what made it so unique was the fact that they had no money. It's a discussion entirely in itself, American studios, which would be great.
Well, I think we discussed that on an earlier show when the Stones got to Chess Records. How many tracks? How many tracks did Chess Records have in their studio? Was it an 8-track?
Something like that. Yeah, they had the capacity and the pleasure of just plugging into the wall. It was just so advanced.
Whereas I think some of the studios in England weren't even 4 tracks then.
Pretty primitive. To get slightly off topic, and I remember watching this DVD or in Australia with my brother when I first started working with you. There was a famous rundown studio in Los Angeles, and they have it's an autobiography, and Tom Petty played there. What was that called? Do you know that?
Sorry,
one?
Mate. I didn't hear your question. I'm too busy chatting, replying on the chat. What was your question? Sorry.
Oh, when I visited my brother in Australia, and when I first started working with you, we watched this random documentary about a famous rundown studio in Los Angeles in the late 70s.
I don't
know. It was run down, but it recorded huge hits. Tom Petty, Jackson Browne.
Oh gosh,
it's massive.
There's a DVD out on it.
Yeah, I watched it.
Oh.
I personally think, and I'm glad that they mentioned about, that and studios having tube equipment and great engineers and reverb, but the greatest music has appeared out of nothing, which means basically a room. I mean, I think they recorded in sun in a toilet to give that reverb sound. So, yeah.
So I'm just, you know what? I should have just bloody said it instead of trying to talk about it in the chat. So Wednesday stores said, can we talk about the Chess Studio sound? So and Simon's said in reply to that that we should be a separate show, and I think it should be. We could have a producers show and maybe do some research and talk about some of the gear that they used. Sunset Sound Studios. Amanda's correct. Yeah, it's a bloody good DVD. It's on Netflix. It's brilliant where they rescue that board and they take that board and it's just a concrete block prefab building in the middle of nowhere.
And it turned out it recorded some of the greatest albums of all time as far as rock albums, right?
Yeah. It's
I mean, I'm glad that we brought up that topic. Studios in itself is another world. You got the band, you got the vision, you got the producers, but then you got the studio, the room. So no studio is the same.
Yeah, I look forward to that show. We should, all of us, including everyone in the chat, do some research on that because, like we mentioned earlier, we certainly know that America had the technology initially. But having said that, though, if you look at what the Beatles were achieving back in London at Abbey Road, and one of the Simon again will know who was the guy that passed away last week. One of the producers, one of the recording engineers. All these blinking names. And he was instrumental in developing a flanger type sound that the Beatles used, and a click track.
Yep.
Exile, part of Exile was recorded where, Simon? At Sunset Sound Studios. I thought it was mixed in the States somewhere. I can't remember. Jeff Emmerich, that's him. Yeah, passed away. Yeah. Yeah, so the Brits caught up pretty quickly, Carl. The Brits caught up pretty quickly and then overtook the Yanks, the Americans.
In studios?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a good question. I think, yeah, that's another discussion all in itself. Studios. I mean, Olympic Studios, Abbey Road,
Nelcote basement.
Yeah, Black Sabbath, Olympics. Like you said, the Sunset Studios, the Chess Studios, the Atlantic Big Boy, Big Money Man Studio, New York, Stack Studios, Memphis, Motown, Florida. What was the one in Florida with Derek and the Dynamos?
Yeah. 461 Nation Boulevard.
Wow.
Yeah. The one in Sausalito as well. You know, that the disco version of Fleetwood Mac recorded Rumours. Yeah.
Right. Shivers, Northern California. I've spent time in Sausalito.
Yeah. Oh, cheap as a Motown. Yeah. Arvin's just kicking us in the backside. Yeah. He's mentioned Motown as well. Was the basement of a house.
Yep.
Stax Records was an old movie theater.
Yep.
Wow.
And there's that famous story about Rod Stewart when he rolled up to Stax, thinking, because they gave him some studio time and said, "We've got a band for you," because he'd loved the music. Rod opened up the door to the studio. There's a whole bunch of white people, David Hood and Roger Hawkins. I said, "What are these guys doing here? I want to meet the black guys." Not realizing that was the rhythm section.
Yeah. Muscle Shoals. Again,
Muscle Shoals is another one.
Yeah, Muscle Shoals, all white dudes.
Yep. So, yeah. Nothing is what it seems.
No.
Kevin. So,
yeah. Steve Cropper, and the
Donald Duck.
Donald Dunn Duck, yeah, just awesome bass. Yeah. Wow.
Sorry. I apologize. I got Stax confused with Muscle Shoals. So the Stax guys was Steve Cropper, Donald Duck. Yeah. Muscle Shoals was Roger Hawkins and David Hood.
Yes.
Which we know of Aretha Franklin.
And who was the bass player? She was a woman who played bass.
Oh, white bass player, eh?
Yeah. What was her name?
About her. And she wrote songs. Shivers.
I can't remember. It'll come back to me unless someone in the chat. Yeah. Probably Simon will know. Al Jackson. But yeah, Simon's made a good point here, multiracial. So at the end of the day, it's and that's why we're all here. It's the music. We love the music.
Yeah. Well, that's what I wanted to demonstrate about Muddy before. Muddy obviously had a full black band initially. And then he was like, hey, there's these Paul Butterfields, these young kids who want to play. And he put them on stage. And Paul Osher, Jerry Portney, Bob Margolin. I mean, what a nice guy. Not that he was trying to, what's the word? Put out any kind of like bias or sympathy, but saying, you know what, you guys deserve a break too. You're working your butt off just like me, Johnny Winter. You're giving me a break.
Have you guys seen the Johnny Winter DVD? If you guys haven't, it came out a couple of years ago. It's brilliant, and it's heartbreaking actually, because he's sitting there in his tour bus and he's touring. and he's off everything, and he's trying to he's leading a straight life.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's trying to answer the questions. He knows that it's getting towards the end. It's yeah, it's brilliant. That's a true blues man too, isn't he? Wasn't he?
I think I told you I was friends with Johnny Winter's wife. Did I tell you that?
Yeah, you did. I remember. Yeah.
She was met her at Antone's, and we hung out a few times. And
cheers, Amanda.
She got big into wakeboarding, into fitness and stuff. And she told me the story about Johnny, who was just such an incredible enigma, amazing talent. And I got to say this: out of all the shows I've seen, I wish I saw triple the amount of shows, but I only saw as much as I could, and I was a bit lazy. Johnny Winter was up there with the best guitar playing I'd ever seen. I'm talking about.
So you spent a lot of time in Texas. Do they love Johnny in Texas? That they love him?
Oh, absolutely. He's a heavyweight. I mean, Beaumont, Texas, which I've spent time there and worked there. But as far as all the guitar playing I've seen and true Chicago playing from black perspective or white perspective, Johnny Winter had that sound down pat.
Wow.
So I wouldn't call him a student. I would just call him somebody that. I mean, what? 45 kilos, an albino, half blind. I mean, what power from someone so society would call feeble. I mean, incredible guitar player. And a lot of people don't know this either. Johnny Winter's one of his first albums was there's a song called "Be Careful with a Fool." Had Tommy Shannon on bass.
Well, Tommy Shannon played with them. He toured with him too. He was his bass player.
Yep. So beautiful connections, beautiful.
And Edgar, his brother.
Yeah, who did that famous? What's that famous one-hit wonder thing he did? Groovenstein or Frankenstein or?
But this is the album for me. That Johnny Winter, the '69 album. I don't know if that's going to focus. Is it going to focus?
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
Is it going to focus?
Yep, it's good.
It's not. No, you're talking. Is it going to focus? Hold on. But yeah, he's handsome there. He's handsome.
Mm.
If I'm yours, and I'm hers.
Which the Rolling Stones did at Hyde Park.
Oh, yeah. I just have to say, yeah, I fell deeply in love with Johnny Winter. Yeah. Yeah. And one day I'll get a Firebird.
I love Firebirds. Seriously.
There's one on Trade Me for $1,700.
A proper Gibson. Nice. Because before I left America to come here, and I was being a bit greedy, I was looking at little Firebirds, and fortunately they're really well priced. There are 2 slabs of wood, not one, eh?
Oh, hold on. This is funny. Jimmy T's asking 45 kilos. That's 100 pounds. We've got to remember we've got people that don't know what metric is.
I don't know. He was definitely not very big.
No, he was a little fellow.
Yeah.
Yeah. We cannot underestimate the influence and the importance of Johnny Winter. Didn't Johnny cover a Rick Derringer song? Rock and Roll Hoochie Goo?
Yeah. No, I think that was either him or Edgar, and he did that famous cover of Johnny Be Good, and he did a Jumping Jack Flash version, and he was all
Yeah,
over the
Simon's
show.
Yep, Simon's mentioned that. Have you ever seen Johnny Winter playing Jumping Jack Flash on the whistle test? Absolutely. Many, many times. Many times.
Yeah.
Mandatory. You guys go and key in Johnny Winter Jumping Jack Flash whistle test after this
It gets
and watch
even it gets even better. Stray Cat Blues.
Oh, yeah. His version.
I just love it. These guys are all intertwined. It's almost like a gang, a big gang. It's like you can hang with us because you're cool. So I call it big boy music or big boy blues.
Oh yeah, well that's one of my favorite. That's one of my favorite Stones songs. Stray Cat Blues. In any version of it's just great.
Yeah.
Of my favorite stuff. So, how's your chicken going?
Good. I better wrap it up. Because I've got a cat in the window and I've got a chicken about to be burnt. So
yeah, I know. It's all cool. That chicken's got to be finger looking good, man.
Well, I always cook it a little bit dry because I'm worried about salmonella. But one of these days I'll cook it properly.
Yeah. Hey, look. As usual, Carl and I always chuff that you people jump in and contribute to what we talk about, and we appreciate your contributions. Soda Pop, Jimmy T, Simon, Arvon, always a pleasure. Amanda, thank you for joining us. And also Wednesday store. Thank you. You've given. I can't say when Carl and I will talk about the studios, but that's certainly a show up and coming. And and if everyone else wants to do some research on that too, we can talk about it.
Absolutely.
So, mate, thanks for joining us, and I'll let Carl say the last word because his chicken's calling.
I just want to say thank you for everybody for participating because we are all on the same journey, which is basically not necessarily discovering good music, but just sharing the music we've discovered and basically learning more. So in conclusion, I mean, thank you for being part of the 4-part series, the Chuck Berry, the Bo Diddley, the rock and roll influence with the Elvis and the Buddy Holly, and conclusion, Muddy Waters, the father of the Chicago blues. And to a lesser extent, obviously, we talk about Howling Wolf and all those connections. But maybe for the next time we talk, if we can get maybe some of the audience to maybe just, they mentioned maybe talk about studios, a simple suggestion of something, a topic to talk about that's, Stones or blues related that we could all participate in.
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, that's a good idea. So, maybe if you guys want to drop something in the comments, something that we can talk about, and Carl and I will discuss that, and I'll drop a quick update on the channel and let you know what we're going to talk about, so that everyone can do a bit of research, because that's what it's about. So yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, you guys give us some suggestions.
Yep, because I'm like everybody else. I'm keen, I'm enthusiastic, I'm hungry, I'm always wanting to learn, and let's give us something to investigate.
Before you go, I've got to tell you, Soda Pop's just asked me to remind you something, that Jeff Beck was asked to join the Stones. Jeff Beck, there's a clip on YouTube where Jeff Beck talks about it.
I did not know that.
Well, nor did I. I'll get the link. I'll send you the link.
Is this from Simon?
No, this is from Soda Pop.
Oh, Soda Pop. Okay.
Yeah. Soda Pop.
Soda Pop's off the hook. If it's Simon, he better investigate.
No. I saw the I saw the clip, but this is what
Is this the
Jeff
Mick Taylor period, the 69?
Yes, this is what Jeff Beck is saying. Jeff Beck is saying that he was asked.
Okay. All right.
But like we said earlier, I think when we were talking about one of the Stones albums, that hasn't been backed up by any official what is it? What's the word I'm looking for? Reference.
Yeah. Official information, investigations, statistics.
Go make some gravy for that chicken. We're out of here, guys. See you guys next week. Thanks for joining us.